The Boston Celtics aren't just the NBA's best defensive team, they're setting a standard for all NBA teams. Today, we will expose the strategic changes and secret tactics behind their success, including how analytics influence their defensive schemes and the unique defensive strategies that set them apart this season. Let's dive into the Celtics world of defensive innovation, which few truly understand. A realization for the Celtics during their 2023 playoff run was that
you have to have a curveball. And for 2-3 years, our curveball, we didn't have one. It was just like switch, guard the ball. But you have to be able to go to something different during the game that changes the momentum. And it's really, really hard to just switch all the time. It puts a ton of pressure on your team.
This philosophy shift was put into action during their game against the Knicks. Recognizing the opportunity to throw a curveball and disrupt the Knicks' rhythm, Boston deployed a strategy not often seen from them, a full court press in the second half. Joe Mazzulla gave a great insight into this decision.
The press just makes them get into their offense later in the clock, and then if you could have a small wrinkle behind the press, it could just throw them off kilter.
This wasn't just about applying pressure, it was a strategic play to dictate the game's pace. The specific press they ran was a 2-2-1 zone press. The 4 perimeter players create a box by forming 2 lines with 2 players each. This box moves similar to a zone as it is a zone press, and the goal is to not allow opposing guards into the middle of the floor, instead force them down the sidelines. The big's job in the 2-2-1 is to just stay underneath the rim and prevent layups. You beat this press by getting the ball into the middle of this box, either by dribbling it in or preferably passing, which the Knicks did. But remember, the goal of the press isn't to get turnovers or steals. Let's compare 2 possessions, one with and one without the press. Without pressing, take note of the time on the clock when Randle shoots. The Knicks are allowed to start their offense at 20 seconds, run a pin down for Randle, which flows into a ball screen and then twists into another ball screen, eventually opening up Randle for 3. Compared to when the Celtics pressed, Randle starts the offensive possession at 11 seconds, and then the Celtics play great individual defense, forcing the turnover. The press slowed down the Knicks offense, forcing them to start much later in the clock, dictating the pace of the game throughout the second half. But before we dive deeper into how the Celtics use analytics, I want you to pay attention to who ends up shooting in this possession against the press, and think to yourself, why? Key detail within the Celtics press is that it forces the better players or scorers to bring the ball up. Notice how Randle, Quickly, and Brunson are all in the backcourt, and Robinson and Hart are in the front court. Now it's time for you to become an NBA scout. Take a look at these numbers and tell me, which players would you rather take shots? Boston will use these analytics and scout which players are poor shooters. For example, Boston designed their defense around Josh Hart, who is only shooting 29.5% from 3. They throw a curveball in, such as the 2-2-1 zone press, to force these players to have to shoot. The dynamic duo of Randle and Brunson are too busy bringing the ball up and beating the press. This prevents them from being able to set up the offense or being the ones who take shots. Whilst all the memes say Horford is Embiid's true father, the Celtics make life difficult on Embiid by double teaming him from the wing/slot area, trying to force him into tougher baseline spins or fades. Here Melton cuts through to try and prevent this double team, but Delonte Branson will leave Robert Covington, who is only shooting 25% from 3, wide open to provide help for Horford against Embiid in the post. This analytical approach is all about playing the long game. Boston's defensive rating is 107 points per game, meaning they only allow opposing teams to score an average of 107 points. Teams are going to score against the Celtics, but the key is who they're letting shoot and why. Letting Covington shoot 25% from 3 each possession is a much better outcome than letting Maxey or Embiid have 50 points each. Joe Mazzulla also mentioned,
and then if you could have a small wrinkle behind the press, it could just throw them off kilter.
This curveball is switching. Boston's defensive-minded roster of Brown, White, Holiday, Hauser, and Pritchard are all elite defenders who can guard 1 through 4 for the most part. Jrue even spent time guarding Embiid, and you'll also notice I left Jason Tatum off this list, but more on that later on in the video. While switching works very well for Boston, it presents some issues for their bigs. The Celtics trio of bigs, Porzingis, Horford, and Kornet, are known as turtles. Turtles are of course slow. Some NBA teams even use the term elephants, as elephants are slow and big. Either way, teams will try hard to get these players switched onto their dynamic guards. The 76ers used hit and hold screens late to try and force Kornet to switch onto Maxey with great success. Covington would hold his screen on the guard, forcing Kornet to have to switch onto Maxey, which resulted in 2 threes and a foul, helping the 76ers reduce the lead in the fourth quarter. Whilst the Celtics switching can be great at stopping any advantages from being created, it will be interesting to see how much they go to it in playoff games and how much of an issue it is having Porzingis and Horford on the floor at the same time. But the Celtics switching is no secret. That is something that the Celtics have already used, so let's reveal a secret the Celtics have deployed so far this season to prevent easy straight line drives. But before we move on, it's quiz time. What is the highest percentage shot in basketball? Is it A, a layup, B, a dunk, C, corner 3, or D, free throws? You have 3 seconds. The answer is D, free throws, followed by B, dunks, and then C, layups. The only way to get free throws, layups, or dunks is by creating straight lines to the rim. Therefore, a core of the Celtics' defensive strategy is to prevent this from happening altogether. If a Celtics defender gets beat, such as Derrick White here, the Celtics will perform a peel switch. Horford, who is in the gap, which means he is standing between the ball and his own man, will switch onto Maxey, whilst White peels off behind Maxey and switches onto Horford's man. This plays into Boston's analytical defensive approach. Force great players to take tough, low percentage contested shots like floaters, mid-range pull-ups, or step backs, and be willing to leave poor shooters wide open for efficient shots and live with the results. Jason Tatum might be one of the best offensive talents in the whole NBA, but in my eyes, he struggles guarding actions on the defensive end. When I was working for teams in scouting, an area I would focus on is who is a screen magnet. A screen magnet is someone who for some reason struggles to get around screens and usually gets stuck on them like a magnet. Here, Tatum gets stuck on the screen and then incorrectly goes under, which leaves a 40% shooter wide open. Tatum is guarding Bane here. The Celtics are in a drop, which means Tatum should go over the screen like we see White do in this clip, forcing him into a drive into Porzingis. However, Tatum just gets stuck on the screen, leaving Bane wide open for the easiest pull-up he has shot all season long. I want you to imagine this situation. It's late in an important playoff game, and the 76ers run a play to get Tatum switched onto Maxey, and then they run an Embiid Maxey ball screen. Do you trust Tatum to get over that screen, or is Tyrese Maxey just going to be able to roam free? Let's now explore 2 huge curveballs the Celtics have been throwing on defense this season. The last one was initially really confusing, but I think it's genius. A key defensive scheme in pick and roll the Celtics use is drop coverage. The goal of drop coverage is to force the ball handler to use the screen and then run them into the big, only allowing the guard to take a low percentage tough contested floater or mid-range jump shot. However, one of the key solutions against the drop coverage is for the ball handler to perform a jail dribble, which we see quickly do here. The idea behind the jail dribble is to keep your defender behind you whilst you wait for your roller to get their head behind the dropping defender's head, which in this case is Porzingis. But the Celtics use a very rare pick and roll defense called nexting to counter this. While Tatum is stuck in jail, Jaylen Brown moves over and, similar to peel switching from before, will switch onto quickly, completely taking away any advantage he had created by using the jail dribble. Jaylen performs the next coverage here. Hauser gets stuck on the screen, so Brown switches onto Maxey, again preventing any advantage created by the screen. This forces Maxey into an isolation versus Jaylen Brown. Maxey ends up scoring a tough contested 2, something that the Celtics will live with according to their defensive philosophy. The 76ers try to counter the next coverage. Here, Hauser is ready to next if Jrue gets stuck on the screen or in jail, while Tatum is guarding both Hauser's man and his own. Covington sets a pin-in screen on Tatum, leaving Harris wide open, as his defender, Hauser, is up high, ready to next the pick and roll. Harris misses this wide open 3, but look at this being a key counter for teams in the future. Next, get it? Let's break down the weirdest curveball the Celtics have thrown all season, having Jrue Holiday guard Embiid. Boston has done this in both games versus the 76ers so far, with the consensus being that the Celtics are going to double Embiid anyway. However, I think it is a lot deeper than that. One of Porzingis' key defensive issues is his strength. Whilst he is gifted with his height and wingspan, he lacks the raw strength that players like Horford or Robert Williams from last season had. He is also very attackable on the perimeter. A big key change in the 76ers offense, thanks to Nick Nurse, is using Embiid as a hub, similar to Jokic or Sabonis. If Embiid is playing pick and roll with Maxey and Porzingis is guarding Embiid, they create situations where Porzingis can be attacked by Embiid on the perimeter, at the rim, or in the post. Therefore, by having Jrue guard Embiid, Jrue can switch on to Maxey, meaning Maxey is guarded by Derrick White or Jrue Holiday and isn't able to attack mismatches with any of the Celtics bigs. Boston's defensive schemes are constantly evolving. They now have multiple curveballs they can throw at teams rather than just switching everything and hoping for the best. Boston's ability to adapt and execute these complex strategies is setting them apart from the rest of the league. And right now, they are my championship favorites. Do you agree with me? Do you think that they are the title favorites, or is another team such as the Timberwolves or the Nuggets the title favorite? Who truly deserves Rookie of the Year? Chet Holmgren or Wemby? The answer might surprise you. Join the debate and discover why Chet's case is more controversial than you think. Click to watch now and dive into the details.